Greece, 1750 BC to 133 BC. The ancient Greeks adapted ideas from many earlier cultures, such as those of Mesopotamia and Egypt. However, they also developed their own ideas about the role of the individual and how society is best governed. Geographic setting. Greece, located in southeastern Europe, is made up of many mountains, isolated valleys, and small islands. This geography prevented the Greeks from building a large empire like that of Egypt or Mesopotamia. Instead, the Greeks created many small city-states. The Aegean and Mediterranean seas were an important link to the rest of the world. The Greeks became skilled sea traders. They exchanged not only goods but ideas and technology as well. For example, the Greeks adapted the Phoenician alphabet for their own use. The rise of city-states. As you know, Greece is divided by mountains into isolated valleys. In addition, hundreds of scattered islands exist off its coast. As a result, Greece did not form a large, unified empire, but existed as a collection of small city-states. A city-state was also known as a polis. A polis typically was made up of two parts. There was a hilltop acropolis, which included marble temples. On the flatter ground below was the main city, within a wall. This area included the marketplace, theater, other public areas, and homes. Between 750 BC and 500 BC, the Greek city-states had several different types of government. At first, kings ruled the city-states. Over time, landowning nobles gained power, creating an aristocracy, a government ruled by the land-holding elite. The two most powerful city-states were Sparta and Athens. Though they shared Greek culture, they developed different ways of life. Militarism and Sparta. Sparta was a warrior society, and from an early age, boys trained for a lifetime in the military. At the age of 7, boys were moved into barracks, where they were toughened by a coarse diet, hard exercise, and rigid discipline. Girls were also trained to exercise rigorously and strengthen their bodies in order to give birth to healthy boys for the army. Although Sparta was an excellent military state, its power declined as a result of its rigid ways and its inability to change. Limited democracy in Athens. A wise leader named Pericles ruled Athens from 460 BC to 429 BC. Under Pericles, Athens had a direct democracy, in which a large number of the male citizens actually took part in the day-to-day running of the government. Women, however, did not participate, since Athenians believed that women were inferior to men and needed male guidance. Another group that did not participate in the Athenian democracy were enslaved people. Enslaved people had neither political rights nor any personal freedom. Even so, Athens gave a greater number of people a voice in government than did any other culture of its time. Athens prospered during this time and became the cultural center of Greece. Great buildings were built, many thinkers, writers, and artists came to Athens. Alexander the Great and the Hellenistic Age. Macedonia was a mountain kingdom north of Greece. In the 300s BC, Philip of Macedonia conquered Greece, which had been weakened by years of civil war. His son, Alexander the Great, went on to build an empire that included the Nile Valley, Persia, and parts of India. Through his conquests, Alexander spread Greek culture. A new Hellenistic culture arose that blended aspects of Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian life. This culture gave more rights and opportunities to women, who even gained some political power. Although Alexander's empire fell apart soon after his death, Hellenistic culture had a lasting impact on the regions he had ruled. Greek and Hellenistic contributions. Ancient Greek and Hellenistic culture left an enduring legacy. In addition to their ideas about government, Greeks made contributions in philosophy, literature, science, and the arts. Philosophy. Greek thinkers tried to use observation and reason to understand why things happened. The Greeks called these thinkers philosophers, a word that means lovers of wisdom. Three of the most famous Greek philosophers were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates, c. 469 BC 399 BC, was born in Athens. He was a stonemason and a teacher. Developed Socratic method, learning about beliefs and ideas by asking questions. Government put him to death for discovering there was only one God, but had no name for him, proclaiming his belief and refusing to change it. St. Thomas Aquinas was influenced by him. Jesus taught by the Socratic method. Plato, c. 428 BC 347 BC, was a student of Socrates. He set up the Academy in Athens, the first known university in the Western world. Believed government should control lives of people. Divided society into three classes: workers, philosophers, and soldiers. Aristotle, 384 BC 322 BC, was Plato's student and Alexander the Great's teacher. Believed one strong and good leader should rule. Believed people learned through reason. Vocabulary word: epic, book, poem, or film that tells a long story about brave actions and exciting events. Literature: the first Greek plays developed from religious festivals. Stories of the gods usually served as the basis for plays. Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides wrote tragedies, plays that told stories of human conflict. Other Greek playwrights wrote comedies. In addition, the Greek poet Homer wrote epic poems that inspired many later writers. Greeks applied observation and logic to the writing of history. The Greek historian Herodotus is often called the father of history because of his careful historical writing. Greeks believed in beauty, balance, and order in the universe. Greek art and architecture reflected those ideas. Greek paintings and statues were lifelike, but they also showed the human body in its most perfect form. The most famous Greek building was the Parthenon. Architects today still use ancient Greek ideas, such as Greek column styles, in their buildings. Science: the astronomer Aristarchus discovered that the Earth rotates on its axis and moves around the Sun. Archimedes explored the principles of the lever and pulley. Hippocrates, a Greek physician, studied the causes of illness and looked for cures. Mathematics: Greek and Hellenistic thinkers made great strides in mathematics. Pythagoras developed a formula to measure the sides of a right triangle. Euclid wrote a book that became the basis for modern geometry. Rome, 509 BC to 476 AD. Geographic setting: Rome is located near the center of Italy, a peninsula located in the Mediterranean. Unlike the geography of Greece, Italy's geography helped its people to unite. Low mountains presented fewer natural barriers. Fertile plains supported a growing population. In addition, the location of the Italian peninsula helped Romans to move easily through the lands of the Mediterranean. The Roman Republic: the traditional date given for the founding of Rome is 509 BC, when the Romans drove out the Etruscans who had ruled them. The Romans established a new form of government called a republic. In a republic, officials were chosen by the people. The most powerful governing body was the Senate. Senators were members of the land-holding upper class, called patricians. These officials elected two consuls, who supervised the business of government and commanded the armies. The plebeians: farmers, merchants, artisans, and traders, who made up most of the population, had little power. Under Roman law, the male head of the household had authority over his wife and family. During the late years of the Republic and early years of the Empire, however, women gained greater freedom. Roman women held prominent public roles and owned successful businesses. The Roman Empire. By 270 BC, Rome had conquered all of Italy. The Romans went on to conquer Carthage, Macedonia, Greece, and parts of Asia Minor. This expansion, however, led to a widening gap between rich and poor and also to increased corruption. attempts at reform led to a series of civil wars. Out of this period of chaos, Julius Caesar came to power. Caesar made new conquests as well as important reforms. After Caesar was murdered, his grandnephew Octavian, later called Augustus, became ruler. Augustus ruled with absolute power, thus bringing the Republic to an end. The age of the Roman Empire had begun. The 200-year peace that began with Augustus is called the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. During this time, the Roman Empire spread stability over a large area of the world, including parts of Europe, North Africa, and Southwest Asia. Roman contributions. Roman civilization spread to other lands. The Romans also absorbed the ideas of other cultures. Law. A system of laws was Rome's greatest achievement. It applied to all people and created a stable Roman Empire. Many of its basic principles, including equality under the law, the right of the accused to face one's accusers and mount a defense, and the idea of being considered innocent until proven guilty, are the basis for systems of justice to this day. In 450 BC, the plebeians demanded written laws, saying that they could not know what the laws were if they were not written down. These laws of the 12 tables, inscribed on 12 tablets, were displayed in the marketplace. Later, plebeians won the right to elect their own officials and serve in all kinds of government jobs. Art and architecture. The Romans borrowed many Greek concepts in the arts and architecture. They used Greek-style statues in their homes and public buildings. Roman buildings were mighty and grand. However, instead of simple and elegant, Roman writers used the Latin language, which united the empire, to write great poetic, historical, and philosophical works. Engineering. The Romans were very practical. They built excellent roads, bridges, harbors, and aqueducts, bridge-like stone structures that carried water from the hills to the cities. The Romans also improved the arch and the dome. The growth of global trade routes. The classical civilizations engaged in trade with one another. These exchanges of goods, technology, and culture expanded from the time of the First Indian Empire to the time of the Romans. Phoenician trade. The Phoenicians were one of the earliest trading empires of the ancient Middle East. Phoenicia was made up of small city-states in the lands known today as Lebanon and Syria. Phoenicians made glass from sand, manufactured a purple dye from the sea snail, and created scrolls from Egyptian papyrus. Their ships carried valuable goods across the Mediterranean. As trade expanded, Phoenicia founded colonies throughout the region. The most important Phoenician contribution to history was the alphabet, developed to record business transactions. It is the basis of the alphabet we use today. The ancient Hebrew Torah scroll authenticates the belief that the children of Israel and the Phoenicians are historically linked. India's role in trade. Even during early Indus Valley civilization, trade had gone on between the peoples of the Indian coast and Mesopotamian civilizations such as Sumer. During the 300s BC, when Alexander expanded his territory into India, he opened a trade corridor between India and the Mediterranean. By 100 BC, Indian goods such as textiles, gems, and spices were in great demand. Some goods were sent overland into Central Asia and China. Others went by ship to the Middle East, Egypt, East Africa, and Southeast Asia. Rome later became an eager market for Indian goods. China and the Silk Road. The Han Dynasty opened a trade route called the Silk Road that eventually linked China with lands as far west as Mesopotamia. Silk and other Chinese goods moved west, while products such as muslin, glass, and new foods flowed into China. The Silk Road eventually stretched for 4,000 miles. Few merchants traveled the entire distance. Most goods were traded at various markets along the way. In the West, groups such as the Persians controlled the Silk Road. Roman trade. During the Pax Romana, trade flowed freely among the peoples of the Roman Empire and other parts of the world. Egyptian farmers supplied grain, Other Africans supplied ivory, gold, and even lions. Indians exported cotton and many spices to the Roman Empire, and the Chinese supplied silk and other goods. Summary: great civilizations arose in India, China, Greece, and Rome from the 300s BC through about 8500. Strong, centralized governments allowed these civilizations to rise and remain strong. Their cultural contributions in the arts and architecture, science and engineering, and law have lasted to the present day. As global trade began to develop, these civilizations shared ideas and technology,